I'm Harper, I'm 33, and my father tried to steal the company I built from nothing, so I watched his fall before I took mine back. When I was a little girl, I thought my father walked on water. He ran a mid-sized logistics company, wore expensive watches, and came home late smelling like metal and cologne. He was that kind of dad, the one who bought me business books for Christmas instead of Barbies. The one who said things like, "Feelings are for later. Problems are now." And for a long time, I believed him. I believed every hard thing he said was just his way of loving us. Now I know better. The worst betrayal of my life wasn't from an ex or a friend. It came from the man who taught me how to shake hands with power in my voice. It started slowly. It always does, doesn't it? 3 years ago, when COVID crushed his business, I offered him a role helping out at my company, Luna and Verse, a boutique digital marketing agency I built from scratch. We were scaling like crazy post-lockdown. I had new clients from Europe, big-name retail brands, and a team that trusted me. I just needed help. Delegating ops, onboarding vendors, logistics headaches, all the behind-the-scenes stuff I hated. And Dad? He'd spent 30 years in logistics. It made perfect sense. "You sure?" he'd asked. "You want me poking around your empire?" "Dad," I laughed. "I'm offering. I want your experience." I should have listened to my gut. At first, it was fine. Actually, it was better than fine. He cleaned up a bunch of old processes, got better shipping rates for our merch clients, streamlined our inventory tools. The team loved him, especially Jenna, my new operations manager. They'd grab coffee, talk numbers, and she'd come back raving about how efficient he was. Then things got weird. One afternoon, I was CC'd on an email chain with a major retail client, except the emails weren't from Jenna or anyone I knew. They were from him. He'd been communicating directly with the client for weeks. Without me. I confronted him. Calmly at first. "You didn't run this through me?" "I didn't want to bog you down," he said. "You've got creatives to manage." "I've done this for years, Harper. It's second nature." I let it go. Mistake number one. A month later, Jenna canceled our weekly check-in. "Your dad already briefed me," she said. "He said you were fine with it." I wasn't. And that's when the nausea started living in my chest full-time. But the real gut punch came one random Friday. I was eating a bagel in the kitchen, half listening to Spotify, when I got a Google alert for my company name. It was a new business listing. Luna and Verse Logistics Solutions, LLC. My heart dropped. The logo? Almost identical to ours, just sleeker. More corporate. The founder? David Brooks. My father. It wasn't just a branch or an offshoot. It was a fully registered business using my brand's identity. And I hadn't signed a damn thing. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. A misfile. An accident. But the email domain matched. The phone number listed? It went to a number I knew, my dad's second phone. The one he used when he didn't want distractions. And the worst part? He'd already signed a client. A former Luna and Verse client. A six-figure contract. Gone. I stormed into his office, the one I let him use, rent-free, 2 doors down from mine. "What the hell is this?" I slammed the printed LLC filing on his desk. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Harper," he said, like I was overreacting. "It's a natural extension of what you're doing. You weren't fully utilizing the logistics side of your brand, and I saw an opportunity." "You what?" My voice cracked. "This is my company. My name. You didn't even talk to me." He leaned back slowly in his chair, folding his hands over his stomach. That smug, infuriating calm he always used when I was younger, like my rage was just some cute tantrum. "I'm protecting your interests," he said. "One day, you'll understand." No apology. No ownership. Just that same superior tone I'd grown up swallowing. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a hostile takeover. I stood there, watching him click away at some spreadsheet like he hadn't just stabbed me in the back, and a single thought surfaced so loud it drowned everything else. He thinks I won't fight back. And for a second, I wasn't sure I could. I felt like a kid again. That old fear, that helplessness he always triggered in me, it was back, choking me. But something else was rising too. Anger. Not the kind that makes you cry. the kind that sharpens you. I left without saying another word. But I didn't cry. Not this time. I called my lawyer. I called Jenna and suspended her access. I started going through every internal document she and my dad had touched. And what I found? He wasn't just helping. He'd built an entire shadow version of Luna and Verse, using my vendors, my resources, even my employee handbook, slightly rewritten, but not enough to be legal. I remember staring at the documents, hands shaking. I'd trusted him, welcomed him into my company like a lifeline, and he'd set up a guillotine behind my back. But instead of running to court right away, I did something that surprised even me. I waited. I watched. Gathered proof. Let him believe I was broken. Because if he wanted to play smart, I was going to be smarter. I started documenting every unauthorized use of IP, every email he sent from our servers, every employee he tried to sway. I kept it quiet. I didn't even tell my closest staff. He thought he was building something brilliant. But I was watching it crack from the inside. And when it started to crumble, oh, I was going to be there to pour the champagne. Before he was the man who tried to take my company, my dad was just Dad. David Brooks. Born in Toledo. Grew up rough, like he loved to remind us. Started working at 14, built his business from scratch. No one handed me anything, he used to say, as if that excused every sharp edge he had. To outsiders, he was a success story. Local business legend. Gave speeches at Rotary Club luncheons. Mentored younger guys like it was his religion. But at home, he was something else entirely. Distant. Dismissive. Sharp when you needed soft. And always more interested in control than connection. My mom left when I was 12. They told people it was amicable. It wasn't. She packed a bag one Sunday morning while I was at a friend's sleepover and didn't come back. I found out when I got home and saw her favorite coffee mug shattered in the sink. Dad told me she was weak, that not everyone's cut out for this life. I didn't ask more questions. I just got quiet. Got good at keeping the peace. I learned not to need much. Growing up, my job was to be exceptional without making a mess about it. By 15, I was writing business plans for fun. By 17, I was running a blog on branding that actually got me noticed by a boutique agency in college. I'd always been obsessed with stories, not fiction, but brand stories. The way a good tagline could make someone trust a company. How visual identity could trigger real emotion. I saw marketing like some people saw poetry. So yeah, maybe I didn't follow his path. I didn't go into shipping or trucks or supply chains. But I built something real. And I did it without cutting corners. And yet, he never really saw it. After college, I took a job at a creative agency in LA. It was chaos, long hours, egos, unpaid overtime. But I loved it. I learned how to pitch, how to close, how to lead a room. I worked under a woman named Clara Renner, who was tough as nails and twice as smart. She was the first person who told me, "You've got something, Harper. But you're giving it away to people who don't deserve it." I didn't understand what she meant until I quit. At 28, I launched Luna and Verse in my tiny Echo Park apartment. A one-woman branding firm. No savings, just freelance gigs and caffeine. For the first year, I worked out of coffee shops and client lobbies. I remember once taking a Zoom call from a park bench because I couldn't afford Wi-Fi that month. But I made it work. Word spread. I reinvested everything. I said no to clients who wanted things fast and cheap. I only took projects I could be proud of. By year 3, I had a team of 6 and was signing Fortune 500 startups. Still, every time I told my dad about a win, it landed like a shrug. "Oh, that's nice. You're doing those internet ads, right?" It was like nothing I did counted because it wasn't his kind of business. Because it didn't come with hard hats or warehouses. And the crazy part? I still wanted his approval. I still called him when we hit our first million. I still invited him to our new office ribbon cutting. He never showed. Said he had meetings. But when COVID hit in 2020 and his company started bleeding cash, guess who called me? "I could use some of your digital marketing magic," he joked. Except it wasn't a joke. He was serious. His clients were jumping ship. His warehouse staff was out. His contracts weren't renewing. I offered to help. Not just because he was my dad, but because deep down I thought maybe this could be a bridge. A chance to prove that my world had value. That what I built wasn't just a vanity project. Why don't you come on as a consultant? I said. You know operations better than anyone. I could use a hand. He hesitated. You sure? Yeah, I smiled. Let's do this together. For the first time in my life, I saw something in his face I hadn't seen since childhood, maybe pride. He started small. Cleaned up our invoicing system. Helped us negotiate some warehouse deals for client product drops. He was good. Really good. He fixed things I hadn't even realized were broken. The team liked him. Especially Jenna, who was new and still unsure of her place. She looked up to him like he was some business god. And to be fair, the man knew how to lead. But leadership without boundaries? It's just manipulation. It started with small things. He'd override decisions Jenna and I made. Send messages to vendors without looping us in. Tell clients, don't worry, Harper's creative, I'll handle the rest. At first, I thought I was imagining it. That it was just old habits. That maybe this was how he operated and I needed to toughen up. But then came the lunches. Jenna started canceling our 1:1s. She'd say things like, your dad, and I already covered that. Or Dave said we're pivoting the process, so I'm holding off on next week's rollout. And, just like that, the company I built was being run without me. Not officially. Not on paper. But in the rooms that mattered? I wasn't in them. I started noticing documents with headers I hadn't approved. Initiatives being pitched that I hadn't created. Client meetings that got rescheduled only to be held by him. And through it all, he smiled like he was doing me a favor. I tried confronting him twice. The first time, I brought up Jenna's reporting line. She's not sure who she's supposed to report to. He shrugged. We're a small team. Who cares? As long as the work gets done. The second time, I asked him to CC me on all client communication. Of course, he said. You're the boss. But he didn't. Then came the LLC filing. It was Jenna who let it slip, without even realizing. We were walking back from lunch and she said, oh hey, your dad showed me the new logo for Luna Logistics. I love the color scheme, so clean. You really nailed the branding. I stopped cold. The what? Luna Logistics, she said. Isn't that what it's called? He said it was the new arm you guys were launching. I didn't even answer. I just nodded and smiled until I got back to my desk. And then I looked it up. Luna and Verse Logistics Solutions, LLC. Registered in Delaware. Filed 3 weeks ago. Founder, David Brooks. Address, my office building. Domain, luna-logistics-soul.com. Phone number, his second line. Email, d.brooks@luna-logistics-soul.com. And that was the moment my stomach dropped into the floor. Because this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't a side project. It was a full-blown clone of my company, branded just enough to sound like a branch, but structured like a takeover. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Everything felt blurry. Surreal. Like I was watching someone else's life collapse. How could he? How could my own father take what I built and try to rebrand it as his? That night, I didn't sleep. I walked my apartment floor like a ghost, reading old emails between us. Seeing all the signs in hindsight. All the tiny dismissals, the slow pushback, the subtle cuts. I remembered the way he used to talk about partnerships when I was little. Control is everything, Harper. If you don't control it, someone else will. Back then, I thought he was talking about competitors. Turns out, he meant family too. The Monday after I found the LLC filing, I came into the office early. Earlier than everyone. I needed time. Space. A moment alone before I had to pretend again. I sat at my desk in the dark, watching the sun bleed through the frosted windows. Everything in the office looked the same. The glass whiteboard filled with ideas, the scent of that cinnamon candle Jenna always lit before client meetings, the rows of plants that the design team joked were our emotional support jungle. It all looked the same. But it wasn't. I felt like a stranger in my own company. He'd built something underneath me, like termites hollowing out the floorboards of a house. Quiet. Systematic. Hidden until it wasn't. At 9:04 a.m., Jenna walked in. She was cheerful. Humming. She had a box of croissants she placed on the kitchen counter. "Morning, boss," she called, not realizing yet that her entire world was about to shift. "Hey," I said flatly. "Can we chat in my office?" "Of course." Her voice brightened like it always did when I asked for a meeting, like she was ready to be praised again. Once we were inside, I closed the door. I didn't bother easing into it. "I know about the new company," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Luna and Verse Logistics Solutions. The LLC filed in Delaware. My father's the registered owner." "Oh," she said, too fast. "I thought you knew." I stared at her. Do I look like I knew? Jenna went quiet. She looked scared, but not guilty. Not yet. Just confused, like she couldn't figure out what line she'd crossed. "I thought it was, like, a spin-off? Like a growth initiative. He said you two were building it together. He's been saying that for months." I stood there stunned. "He told you we were partners?" "Yeah," she said, shifting in her seat. "He said you gave him the green light. That he was helping offload operations so you could focus more on creative strategy. He made it sound like you were grateful." Grateful. That word hit me in the chest like a steel bat. Jenna wasn't the villain. She was a pawn. A smart one, sure. But still a pawn. Just like everyone else in that office who'd unknowingly been folded into his plan. "Have you done any work directly for the new LLC?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. I mean, we created a logistics rebrand deck last week. I thought it was for a pitch under Luna and Verse, but it had the other logo on the draft. I figured it was a sub-brand. "And who is the client?" She paused. "Harwood Retail." Of course it was Harwood. They were one of our oldest clients, a mid-size retail chain that we'd built from the ground up. I'd personally led their initial rebrand 2 years ago. They sent us holiday cards. I'd met their kids. And now they were listed on the new LLC's website as a flagship client. "I need access to all correspondence between you, Harwood, and my father," I said. "Every email. Every file. Every calendar invite." Jenna looked like she might cry. "Harper. I didn't know." "I believe you," I said. "But I still need the files." She nodded and slipped out the door fast. 5 minutes later, I called Harwood's VP directly. I didn't wait for PR, didn't filter it through account managers. I called Leslie Harwood herself, the matriarch of the family business. "Harper," she answered, cheery as ever. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Leslie," I said, "I just have a quick question. Who are you currently under contract with for logistics strategy?" There was a pause. "Why, Luna and Verse Logistics, of course. Your father's been wonderful. We just signed the 6-month extension." My throat went dry. "You know that's not my company, right?" Another pause. A longer one this time. "Wait, what? That's a separate LLC. I didn't authorize it. I didn't even know it existed until this weekend." "Oh my God," she said. "I thought it was your expansion." He introduced himself as your new COO. My chest burned. Coup. I hadn't given him any title. There was no paperwork, no payroll record. But I knew what he was doing, using the Brooks name, the visual similarities, the confusion of branding, to make it seem legitimate. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so did Harwood now. Leslie sounded horrified. "Harper, I swear, if I'd known." "It's okay," I said, even though it wasn't. "I'll be sending you new documentation and a legal clarification. But just so we're clear, I didn't approve this." "Understood." Loud and clear. We hung up. And I sat there, letting the betrayal roll over me in waves. He didn't just copy my company. He poached one of my most loyal clients. He lied to everyone, even his own granddaughter figure in Jenna. And he did it without blinking. That night, I went home and opened a folder labeled Dad Evidence. Inside it were screenshots, contracts, LLC filings, side-by-side logo comparisons, client rosters, emails, even calendar invites he'd forgotten to make private. Each one a little blade to the back. By 1 a.m., I had everything I needed for my lawyer. But I still couldn't sleep. Because legal action? That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the quiet loss, the emotional theft. He'd been planning this for months. maybe a year. And I didn't see it. Because I wanted him in my life so badly that I ignored the warning signs. Even when he started undermining me in meetings. Even when Jenna stopped coming to me first. Even when he started talking about what real leadership looks like. I made excuses. I played the good daughter. And he used it, all of it, to try and steal what I built. For weeks, I walked around like a shell. People noticed. The design team tiptoed around me. Jenna kept her head down. My assistant, Marcy, started showing up early with coffee I didn't ask for. And the worst part? He was still in the building. Still walking the halls, shaking hands, smiling like a damn shark. Until I cracked. It was a Thursday. Rainy. The office was mostly empty because half the team was remote that day. I saw him talking to a vendor in the lobby, one of my vendors, and something inside me snapped. I marched over. Dad. My office. Now. He followed me with that calm, annoying smile like we were about to have a lunch meeting. Once the door shut, I didn't wait. I know everything. He leaned back in the chair across from me, cool as ever. Everything's a big word, Harper. You filed an LLC. You stole my brand, my clients, my resources. You lied to my team. You told Harwood you were our COO. You've been funneling work through your company while using my infrastructure. Still no flinch. Your infrastructure wouldn't exist without me. And there it was. The first crack of truth. I built this company before you ever stepped foot in here, I said. You walked in after COVID with your ego bruised and your pride shot, and you saw me, your daughter, thriving without you. And it burned you. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said, breathing hard. You couldn't handle that I made it. That I did what you couldn't, build something that lasts, that scales, that people actually want to work for. You're being emotional. No. I'm being strategic. You're done here. He laughed. You can't fire me. I never hired you. There's no record of employment. You're not on payroll. You're not on the board. You're not even an advisor. I've made you money. And you've cost me 10 times more. He stood. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I made one a year ago when I let you in. He left. And that night, I called my lawyer. The day after I kicked him out, my phone didn't stop ringing. Not from him, no. He went radio silent. But the ripples? They were instant. Jenna texted me 6 times before noon. Should we talk? Are we okay? Can I come by? I didn't answer. I needed time to figure out how to salvage what was left of my company's reputation before dealing with hers. By mid-afternoon, 2 vendors had already emailed asking if they were supposed to now send invoices to the logistics team separately. One even forwarded an old thread, an entire project quote with my father's name on it and a PO number tied to his business account. I sat at my desk reading and rereading the email, realizing how deep it went. And worse, realizing I had no one to blame but myself. I was the one who let him in. I was the one who introduced him to Jenna, to our clients, to our back-end systems. I gave him keys to the front door, and he'd used them to rob me blind. Around 3 p.m., I shut my laptop, stood up, and walked straight to the bathroom. Not to cry. Not even to breathe. Just to sit. The stall became a kind of sanctuary. That cold, hollow, 2-white corporate bathroom with bad lighting and a flickering motion sensor light. I sat there and stared at the floor, thinking, I'm 33. And I just got hustled by my own father. I didn't cry. But I didn't move either. Because what do you do when the person who raised you becomes your enemy? What do you do when the man who taught you to negotiate contracts and read balance sheets and walk with your shoulders back uses that same knowledge to gut you from the inside? You either shatter. Or you sharpen. That night, I went home, turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and started reading the contract files again. One thing I hadn't realized before? Some of the NDAs in his logistics firm matched ours word for word. Like he didn't even bother to rewrite them. He'd copied and pasted my legal framework, swapped out the logo, changed the names, and rebranded it as his. My attorney, Beth, had been waiting for this moment. We'd already collected the evidence. Already built the case. Now it was about timing. Do we go for the cease and desist now? She asked over Zoom, hair in a bun, glasses perched low on her nose. Not yet, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You want to wait? I want to watch him choke on it. Okay, she said slowly. You've got that look. What look? The look you had when that one client refused to pay their final invoice, and you rebuilt their whole campaign as a public case study and got it published on Forbes. I didn't smile. But I felt that old part of me stirring again. The part I'd buried beneath hurt and humiliation. That fire. That edge. I'm done being the daughter, I said. He picked this war. Beth leaned back and said, then let's end it. The next day, I returned to the office like a woman reborn. I wore all black. Hair tied up, gold hoops, no makeup. I walked in like a CEO again, not a daughter in damage control. The staff noticed. Even Jenna, who was back at her desk like a ghost, too nervous to speak. I walked past her, straight to the glass conference room, and called an all-hands meeting. People filtered in slowly, nervously. Whispers. Side eyes. Half-finished lattes trembling in hands. And then I stood at the head of the table and said one sentence. There's been a breach. You could hear the air tighten. I told them the truth. All of it. I told them about the fake LLC, the poached clients, the rebranded contracts, the stolen IP. I told them how he used Jenna, and not maliciously, but as a way in. I told them I took full responsibility. And I told them what was coming next. We are filing formal legal action. Today. Gasps. One cough. A few eyes on Jenna, who was turning slowly to stone beside me. But more than that, I said, we're rebuilding from the inside out. I passed around packets. New security protocols. Updated client check-ins. Mandatory two-factor authentication. No more shared folders. No more blanket access. I wasn't just patching the leaks. I was rebuilding the damned ship. After the meeting, Jenna stood in the doorway of my office for almost 10 full minutes before she finally knocked. I'm sorry, she said softly. I didn't answer. She sat down anyway. I swear, Harper, I didn't know. I thought he was helping. I thought I was doing a good job. You were doing a good job, I said. You just weren't doing it for me. Tears welled in her eyes. Please don't fire me. And that's when I realized she really didn't understand. Jenna, I said gently, this isn't about punishment. It's about trust. I can earn it back. You can try. And I meant it. Because yes, she'd been used. But she also hadn't asked enough questions. She'd been too eager to impress someone with more power. And if she wanted to stay, she'd have to work 3 times harder now. I watched her leave, shoulders heavy, and for the first time in weeks, I felt control inching back toward me. That night, I logged onto the internal Slack and saw something that nearly broke me. A message in the random channel from one of our designers, Theo. To everyone feeling weird, confused, or even betrayed, this is your reminder. We didn't build this for him. We built this for Harper. I'm not going anywhere. And neither should you. It had 32 reactions. Every team member. One by one, they responded. I'm in. Same here. Whatever she needs. Let's rebuild. I sat there at my kitchen table, scrolling through message after message with one hand over my mouth and the other gripping my wine glass like a lifeline. He hadn't taken everything. Not even close. The next morning, I woke up early, dressed in navy, power color, and called Beth. It's time, I said. We filed the cease and desist. Send it directly to his fake LLC, to his private email, and to his lawyer, who, funnily enough, also happened to be the same guy he used when he sold off half of his failing logistics company the year before. By lunch, my father had called twice. I didn't answer. By 3 p.m., he'd emailed me. Harper, this is absurd. You're acting like a child. We can resolve this privately. I did this for you. For your future. Call me. Dad. I deleted it. Then I published a LinkedIn post. Not dramatic. Not angry. Just honest. Sometimes, betrayal comes from the people you love the most. And sometimes, the only way to move forward is to stop protecting those who hurt you. Luna Anverse is mine. I built it. I own it. And I will defend it. To our clients, our staff, and our community, thank you for standing beside me while I reclaim what's mine. Onward. It went viral. Not in a million views way, but in a community way. Hundreds of comments from other women, other founders, other daughters. My ex-husband did the same. My mentor took my deck and pitched it as his own. My dad told me I'd fail, then tried to buy my business. I wasn't alone. And more importantly, neither were they. The next few days passed in a blur of updates. Leslie from Harwood sent over a signed statement affirming she was misled. Beth added it to the file. 3 clients terminated their contracts with Luna Logistics and came back to us. The judge granted a temporary injunction preventing his company from using our name, assets, or branding. And finally, on a gray Thursday morning, I got an email with the subject line, "Withdrawal Notice." His LLC had been voluntarily dissolved. Just like that. He folded. No apology. No explanation. No conversation. Just a silent retreat. Which was fine. Because I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. And I was finally starting to feel it. The day his LLC dissolved, I stared at the email for a full 5 minutes, waiting to feel something. Relief, maybe. Triumph? But mostly, I just felt still. Not numb, not angry, just still. Like I'd finally stepped out of a storm I didn't realize had lasted so long. The sound was different on this side. Quieter. Sharper. Like I could finally hear myself think again. He didn't call. He didn't show up. He didn't try to make it right. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He was cornered. The kind of man my father was. He didn't apologize. He didn't reflect. He didn't unpack what he'd done. He just cut his losses and ran. And I didn't chase. I had bigger things to rebuild. We lost 2 clients during the chaos. One of them, a retail startup from New York, cited loss of confidence in leadership. I didn't fight it. I didn't beg. Let them go. Because what we kept, that was real. The loyalty that remained in the ashes, that was what mattered. I made a decision then and there. We weren't just going to survive this. We were going to rise. First thing I did? Rebrand. Not fully, I wasn't about to throw away our identity. But enough to send a signal. We dropped the "and" verse. The new name? Luna. Clean. Sharp. Singular. A nod to my original vision, light in the dark, strategy with soul. I called in a friend from my early agency days, Rena, a rebrand specialist who'd helped revamp a global cosmetics giant after a PR nightmare. She came to the office with her sleeves rolled up and said, "So you got stabbed by family and you want to look hotter than ever?" Exactly. Over the next 2 weeks, we gutted everything. New logo, fresh color palette, stripped down website. Sleek. Minimal. Powerful. By the time it launched, even our competitors sent compliments. "This feels elevated," one email said. Like a phoenix moment. And it was. But while the brand was reborn, something else was quietly happening in the background, something far more personal. Because while my father had backed down, his own company, Brooks Freight Systems, was still limping along. Barely. And I knew something he didn't know I knew. His biggest remaining client was on the fence. Westbound Goods, a multi-regional distributor. I'd done one consulting project with them a year ago. Nothing big. But I still had their COO's number in my phone. His name was Marcus Steen. Young. Smart. The kind of executive who'd modernized a 50-year-old operation in under 3 years. And he hated inefficiency. I sent him a short message. "You still happy with Brooks Freight?" He responded, "Define happy." Got 10 minutes. We talked that afternoon. Marcus didn't know the full story. Just that things had been chaotic over there. Staff turnover. Delivery issues. Sloppy invoices. "It's like the systems are rotting from the inside," he said. "We're looking at alternatives." I didn't pitch anything. I didn't push. I just said, "If you ever want to explore a modern logistics platform, I know a few. And we've got a new division launching next quarter." That was all I needed to say. Because here's what my father didn't understand. Power isn't in titles. It's in relationships. And I'd spent the last 6 years building them. Every handshake. Every project done with integrity. Every client I stayed late for. Every team I coached through hell. All of it came back now, like stored energy waiting to be unleashed. And I was finally ready to use it. Back at the office, we quietly began developing our logistics integration pilot. Not to replace Luna. To expand it. Rena coined the name, Luna Core, a strategic partnership initiative where we helped our brand clients streamline product fulfillment through ethical, efficient partners. We wouldn't be a shipping company. We'd be the connector, the digital brain behind smarter logistics. I'd spent years avoiding that space. Now I was walking right into it on my terms. Meanwhile, Jenna was rebuilding her trust. Slowly, carefully. She took a step back from operations and moved into a hybrid role, strategy and vendor management, reporting directly to me. I wasn't sure if we'd ever be the same, but for the first time, I saw humility in her work. The kind that only comes after being burned. And then there was my mother. She called me out of the blue one Thursday evening. I hadn't spoken to her since Christmas, before all of this went down. I let it ring twice before I answered. Harper. Her voice was small. Hi. I heard what happened. From him. From your cousin, actually. Then I called your father and he didn't say much. Sounds familiar. She sighed. I'm sorry. And I believed her. My mom had never been malicious. Just absent. Quiet in the face of his thunder. I don't know if she ever felt powerful enough to intervene. Are you okay? She asked. I'm getting there. I never knew he was capable of. Yeah, well, I said, neither did I. Silence. Then, I always thought you had your own kind of strength. Softer, but deeper. Turns out, it's sharper too. I didn't cry, but something loosened in my chest. Thanks, Mom. That was all we said. We didn't rehash the past. We didn't try to fix decades in a single call. But it was something. And for now, that was enough. 3 weeks later, Marcus from Westbound called again. He wanted a meeting. In person. I flew to Chicago, met him at a sleek boardroom downtown. He laid out a nightmare. Botched inventory transfers, late shipments, data breaches. We need a new model, he said. And I want you to build it. Not me, I said. Luna Core. You'd be our first partner. He grinned. Then let's do it. That was the moment I knew. My father hadn't just failed to destroy me, he'd handed me the blueprint to his collapse. Because while he was out there stealing my name, I'd learned to steal something better, his clients. With honesty. With innovation. With real trust. Back in LA, I gathered the team. Told them the plan. Told them we were growing again. They clapped. Theo cried a little. Even Jenna smiled, the weight in her shoulders lifting for the first time in months. And I stood there, in front of the company that I'd built, nearly lost, and rebuilt again, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Power. Not the kind that dominates or manipulates, but the kind that leads. The kind that chooses light over legacy. Because the truth is, my father didn't just try to steal my business. He tried to convince me that I couldn't lead without him. And he failed. Because real leadership? It isn't control. It's clarity. And I was finally clear. Crystal. The first time I heard he was unraveling, it came from a stranger. Well, not a stranger exactly. A LinkedIn connection. Someone from my dad's old orbit. A woman named Cassandra who used to work logistics for a rival firm. We'd never spoken before, but she sent me a message one Friday morning that read, "Saw your father on a panel this week. He looked rough. Didn't mention your name once. He's pitching a new venture again. Same pattern. Just thought you'd want to know." I stared at the message, my stomach nodding into something complicated. Not joy. Not pity. Something more like dread. Because even after everything, there was still a part of me, that wounded, loyal part, that didn't want to see him go down in flames. Not like this. Not because of me. But what he was doing now. That was on him. And the truth is, people like my father don't crash all at once. They fray. Slowly. Quietly. Underneath all the noise. I started hearing more about it, little things mostly whispered. He was pitching new projects without capital. Trying to rebrand Brooks Freight again, this time as a green supply chain initiative. Rumor had it he'd gone through 2 new operations managers in a month. And then came the article. A small piece in Industry Pulse Weekly, a B2B logistics newsletter that only insiders read. I wasn't subscribed, but my friend Marcus from Westbound forwarded it with a single-word subject line, oof. The headline? Legacy logistics firm struggles with digital pivot after failed expansion. The firm? Brooks Freight. The failed expansion? That would be his fake Luna spinoff. The article didn't name me, but it didn't have to. It mentioned a collapsed logistics rebrand that bore uncanny similarities to an existing California-based marketing firm. And just like that, the cracks became visible. I read the article 3 times. There it was, in black and white, the fallout. The ripple. The slow, public confirmation of what I already knew. He was losing his grip. But it wasn't enough to end him. Not yet. The man had built a reputation over 30 years. A good one, even if it was based more on bluster than integrity. There were still people who backed him. Still investors who remembered the golden years. Still family friends who refused to believe he could be capable of that level of betrayal. And that's when I realized something else. This wasn't over. Not until I said it was. He'd been able to retreat quietly because I let him. Because I didn't go public with the lawsuit. Because I never mentioned names. Never told the full story, not to the press, not even to clients. I'd protected him. And now? He was using that silence as cover, trying to rebuild his narrative while mine was still bleeding out. No more. I decided it during a team dinner. We'd just finished celebrating the Luna Core pilot with Westbound. Champagne. Tapas. Laughter. I watched my people toasting each other, watched Jenna laugh with Theo like the last 6 months hadn't happened. And I thought, they deserve the truth. I pulled Theo aside as he was leaving. You up for one last design project? I asked. He grinned. What kind of project? A story. A week later, Luna's blog dropped an article titled, Building Through Betrayal, What Reclaiming Our Name Really Meant. I wrote every word. It didn't name my father. It didn't need to. But it laid out the timeline. The deceit. The fight. The rebrand. The rebuild. It detailed how I'd watched my own family member attempt a hostile takeover. How I'd recovered. How we'd restructured every piece of our company from the ground up. It was raw. Honest. Surgical. And it ended with this line. If someone ever tries to take what you've built, let them try. Just make sure they remember whose name was on the foundation. The post exploded. It got picked up by 3 business podcasts, 1 Women in Startups blog, and a handful of VC newsletters. Clients emailed to say they were proud to work with us. 2 former employees who'd left during the chaos messaged me to ask if we had openings again. We didn't. But it still felt like justice. Meanwhile, my father stayed quiet. Until he didn't. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to answer. Hello. Silence. Then, Harper. His voice. Older. Raspy. Like he hadn't slept. It's been a while, I said. I read your piece. Of course he had. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't say sorry. Just launched right in. You didn't have to make it public. You made it public when you registered an LLC under my brand. You embarrassed me. You betrayed me. A pause. I thought you'd be over it by now. My stomach turned. I'll never be over it, I said quietly. But I'm past it. Big difference. He chuckled bitterly. I gave you your edge. No, I said. You gave me my trauma. I gave myself the edge. More silence. Then, almost softly, I'm losing everything. I didn't respond. Because what do you say to that? Sorry? You should have thought about that? He'd said it like it was a tragedy. Like it wasn't a result of his own choices. He waited for me to fill the silence. I didn't. Finally, he muttered, you win. And then he hung up. No goodbye. No closure. Just click. And I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the blank screen, heart beating way too fast. Did I win? I didn't feel like I'd won. But I didn't feel broken either. That night, I went back through old photos. Me and him at my high school graduation. Him shaking my hand like we were business partners, not father and daughter. Me, age 12, at his office, pretending to answer phones while he smiled behind me. Us at my college send-off dinner, where he spent more time talking about my scholarship than about me. He'd always seen me as potential. Never as a person. That was his mistake. And now? Now I was done carrying it. You'd think the final reckoning would happen in a courtroom or some dramatic press conference. But no, it started at a wedding. Not mine, obviously. I wasn't even dating at that point. Too busy keeping my company from collapsing and recovering from emotional whiplash to even think about men. The wedding was for one of our clients, well, the CEO of a retail skincare brand we'd rebranded last year. Aria Bloom. Her name was Daisy, and she'd become something between a friend and a mentor during the chaos. Classy, grounded, scary, smart. She'd invited the whole Luna team to her Napa wedding and insisted I be there personally. Besides, she said, a little fresh air never hurt anybody. And rumor has it you need to see sunlight again. So I went. The vineyard was like something out of a magazine. Twinkle lights strung between olive trees. A four-piece jazz quartet. The kind of wedding that smelled like money but didn't scream it. I was halfway through a glass of Sauvignon Blanc when I saw him. My father. Across the garden, wearing a deep navy suit and laughing with someone at the bar like nothing had happened. I froze. I hadn't seen him in person since the call, the one where he said, "You win." Now here he was, mingling with tech founders and legacy CEOs like the past year had been a blip. I felt my hands shake slightly, wine trembling in my glass. He hadn't seen me yet. Next to him was a tall, tan man I vaguely recognized, Grant Summers. An investor. Big in supply chain automation. West Coast tech elite. The kind of man who could fund a sinking ship if you convinced him it was a submarine. And my dad? He was clearly trying. I scanned the space. Marcus was nearby, deep in conversation with someone from Aria Bloom's board. Daisy was twirling on the dance floor in a champagne-colored dress. Everything around me was beautiful and civilized. And yet I felt like I'd stepped onto a battlefield. I moved quickly, ducking behind the floral arch before he could lock eyes with me. I needed space. I needed strategy. I pulled out my phone. I texted Theo. "You'll never guess who's here." He responded immediately. "Is it Jenna's ex? Please let it be that walking hair gel." I sent back one word. "Dad." He replied. Flush face. "Want me to crash the party with a drone banner?" This man steals from his daughter, Skull. I actually laughed. That helped. Then I heard his voice. Louder now. Booming. Confident. He was talking about vertical integration and cross-channel innovation, and I could tell from his tone that he was pitching something big. I edged closer. Not to eavesdrop. Not really. Okay, a little. Just in time to hear. It's all in the works already. Just waiting on that final VC backing to launch full scale by next quarter. Your own logistics tech platform? Grant asked. Exactly, my father said. Automated fulfillment. AI-managed inventory. Think of it as the Uber of product distribution. All under the Brooks name. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from reacting. The Brooks name? No shame. No mention of past failures. Just a clean slate forged on fantasy. And then came the real kicker. We've got some killer brand partnerships lined up already, he added. Can't name names yet, NDAs and all that. But let's just say, companies you've definitely seen on magazine covers lately. And that's when it hit me. He was using us. Again. He was using Luna's success, our name, even if indirectly, to imply we were involved. Riding our wave to legitimize whatever sketchy startup dream he was now peddling. I backed away. My stomach twisted. But I wasn't angry. Not like before. I was calculating. Because this time, he was walking into my territory, tech, partnerships, funding. And I knew exactly how to kill his leverage. Later that night, back at my hotel, I pulled out my laptop. Within an hour, I'd written a quiet but pointed email to 5 people I knew would be approached, 3 VC partners, 1 angel investor, and an industry podcast host. I didn't slam him. I didn't rant. I just stated the facts. In light of recent fundraising conversations tied to a Brooks fulfillment automation platform, I'd like to clarify that Luna, formerly Luna and Verse, is in no way associated with this venture. Any implication of brand collaboration is false. For transparency, this founder previously attempted an unlicensed rebrand under Luna's IP. A formal C&D was issued in Q2 last year. The LLC has since been dissolved. Happy to provide documentation upon request. Best? Harper Brooks. CEO Luna. I didn't even have to name him. They'd figure it out. I sent it. Then shut my laptop and went to bed for the first time in weeks with a clear head. By morning, I had 2 replies. One from a partner at Greystone Ventures, polite but curt. Thanks for the heads up. Disappointing to hear. We'll tread carefully. And another from a woman named Lauren, a former founder turned angel investor I'd met once at a panel. I knew something felt off. Appreciate the transparency. Let me know if Luna ever launches a full-stack logistics tool. I'd fund you. Not him. That was the moment I knew he was finished. Not because I exposed him, but because I replaced him. He wasn't the authority anymore. He wasn't the voice in the room. I was. And while he was busy spinning a fantasy, I was busy building a future. The next twist came 2 weeks later when Jenna walked into my office holding a thick manila envelope. This came to my house, she said, frowning. What is it? From your father's lawyer. It's sealed. I didn't open it. I took it from her slowly. Inside was a letter. 2 pages. Typed. Formally worded, but emotionally confused. A confession of sorts. He admitted to leveraging Luna's reputation in recent pitches. Said he was under pressure to regain footing. Said he never meant harm. Then came the kicker, an offer. He wanted to merge. Seriously. His new concept. My platform. Brooks x Luna, he called it. He said he still believed we were stronger together. I sat there in silence, reading that line over and over. Strong enough together to rewrite our shared legacy. It almost sounded poetic. Until I remembered what together really meant in his world, under him. I folded the letter, placed it in my desk drawer, and locked it. Then I wrote him back. Not a letter. Just an email. Dad, I received your proposal. Thank you for the reminder of why I do this alone. Luna will not be pursuing any collaboration now or ever. Consider this the final correspondence between us, in business or otherwise. I hit send. Then I sat back in my chair and exhaled. Not with relief, but with resolve. The kind that settles in your bones when you know you're done being anyone's pawn. It took exactly 11 days for the fallout to begin. Not just the fallout from my rejection letter. That was inevitable. But the wider collapse. The kind that begins at the edges and then, all at once, caves in the center. I didn't hear it from him. I heard it from Theo. He stormed into my office one Tuesday morning, breathless, holding up his phone like it was some sort of artifact. Did you see this? He said. I looked up from my laptop. See what? He turned the screen to me. A tweet. Just a screenshot. Really, someone had posted a thread from Startup Watch, a popular business leak account known for juicy tips and anonymous industry whispers. The headline? Breaking. Prominent logistics founder investigated for alleged investor fraud following pitch misrepresentations tied to non-affiliated company. And there, blurred but unmistakable, was my father's name. I didn't say anything for a long time. Theo hovered near my desk, unsure if he should sit down or run out. He used your name again, he said softly. I clicked through the thread. Apparently, one of the VCs I'd warned had quietly opened an internal audit into my father's proposal. Not only did it turn out he had no signed NDAs with any brand he'd claimed to partner with, including us, but he had actively shown mock-up pitch decks with our branding still visible. Not screenshots. Not stolen logos. The actual presentation deck. From the Luna rebrand era. Watermarked and all. That was the part that got him caught, the watermark. He'd stolen a pitch deck we used in a real partnership proposal and tried to pass it off as his own. And he wasn't smart enough to change the footer. The audit report leaked through the grapevine. An anonymous tipster, probably someone inside Greystone, sent it to the blog. From there, it spread like wildfire. Within hours, LinkedIn was buzzing. Not a scandal yet, but enough raised eyebrows to send the right people running. I watched it unfold like I was watching someone else's life burn down. There was no joy in it. No gloating. Just a deep, strange grief. Like watching someone you once loved disappear for good. The final nail came 5 days later. Beth, my attorney, emailed me a PDF. The subject line read, "It's done." It was a scan of a formal investor disavowal. The group my father had pitched signed and circulated a statement that they were no longer in active talks and would not be pursuing any partnership or funding with the entity formerly branded as Brooks Fulfillment. The last sentence was what struck me. We do not support ventures founded on false intellectual property claims. That sentence, it stuck in my head for days. Founded on false intellectual property claims. It said everything. That was his legacy now. Not the man who built a logistics firm from nothing. Not the family business success story. But the man who faked his way into the next chapter and got caught. I didn't respond to Beth's email right away. Instead, I went home, pulled out an old box from my closet, and sifted through photos. There was one I hadn't looked at in years. Me and him. I was 10, maybe 11. Sitting on his shoulders at a 4th of July parade. He was smiling. Not the business smile. The real one, the one I forgot he used to have. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back. Because that man? He was gone. And maybe he never really existed the way I thought he did. The aftermath didn't stop with him. It shifted me too. I started sleeping again. Not a lot, I'm still a CEO, but better. Deeper. I stopped grinding my teeth at night. Stopped replaying conversations in my head like a courtroom transcript. Stopped scanning my inbox expecting disaster. I could breathe again. The Luna office changed too. It got lighter. Jenna started leading meetings again, but this time, she always looped me in first. Not out of fear, but out of trust. She worked harder than anyone to earn her spot back. She took the fall with humility. She learned from it. Grew. We promoted her formally 6 months later, Director of Strategy and Systems. She cried. Theo made her a crown out of paper clips. The whole team clapped when I made the announcement. It was the first time in a long time that the office felt like a family again. A real one. The kind that doesn't steal from you when you're not looking. Our numbers climbed. We didn't just recover, we scaled. By Q4, we had 2 new Fortune 500 clients. One came from a competitor who'd quietly folded during the pandemic. The other? A rebrand referral from Marcus Dean. Lunacore took off like wildfire. Not because we marketed it hard, but because the right people saw what we were doing and believed in it. People wanted values again. Authenticity. Substance. And they trusted us to deliver it. I still got the occasional message from people in my dad's orbit. Some curious. Some skeptical. One woman, a former assistant of his, sent me a note that read simply, I always knew you were the real leader. He just never liked admitting it. Glad you proved it without becoming him. I printed that one. Taped it to the back of my office door. For me. Not anyone else. Just so I could remember what I survived without losing who I am. Then one day, something unexpected happened. An email. From my mother. Subject, lunch. I hadn't seen her since the last phone call. Since she'd told me, you always had a quieter kind of strength. I debated opening it for 10 minutes. Then I clicked. Harper. I know things are still complicated, but I miss you. And I'm proud of you even if I never said it when it mattered. If you're open to it, I'd love to take you to lunch. No agenda. Just, as your mom. I'll wait until you're ready. Mom. I stared at the message for a long time. And then? I replied, let's do lunch. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like a clean cut. Sometimes it looks like a slow return. Not to what was, but to what could still be. The last time I heard from my father was 6 months after the collapse. A handwritten note. Delivered to the office. No return address. Just a folded card inside that said, you turned out harder than I expected. That's probably good. Don't worry, you won't hear from me again. I threw it away. Not out of anger. But because I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need his final word. I had my own. And it was written in everything I'd rebuilt. Everything I'd reclaimed. Everything he tried to take that didn't break me, but sharpened me instead. Closure is a funny word. People think it's about resolution, about things making sense, wrapping up with clean lines and final bows. But that's not how it works. Not really. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not an apology or a courtroom win or some grand emotional reckoning. It's quieter than that. More like the moment you stop checking your phone for messages you know won't come. Or when someone mentions their dad at lunch and your chest doesn't twist anymore. It's the silence that doesn't ache. That's what I felt, sitting alone in my office one Friday evening, staring out the window at the city we'd built Luna in. The same streets where I used to walk after 12-hour days, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life trying to do this on my own. Turns out I hadn't. And now it was mine. Fully. Unshakably. The thing I kept waiting for, some grand emotional moment, a cry, a release, it never really came. Because I'd already had it. Not all at once, but in pieces. When I said no to his merger proposal. When I launched the rebrand. When I stood in front of my team and told the truth. Piece by piece, I took it all back. And now? Now I was just living. I got coffee without checking Slack. I went to yoga twice a week. I took a weekend trip to Big Sur with a book and no laptop. I started seeing someone. Not seriously. Not yet. His name's Elijah. He's an architect, quiet, observant, listens more than he talks. We met at Daisy's launch event for her new skincare line. He was helping with the pop-up installation. We got paired for a group photo. He made a dumb joke about being the only man in the building who could name 3 kinds of toner, and I laughed harder than I had in months. We had drinks the week after. Talked until midnight. I told him about my company, about the rebrand, about growing something from the inside out. I didn't tell him about my father. Not yet. And that felt like its own kind of power, choosing what parts of the story were mine to carry forward. He still doesn't know the full thing. But that's okay. He will. Eventually. When I'm ready. Because that story? It's not about my dad anymore. It's about me. And if I've learned anything, it's that I get to decide who carries my name and my narrative moving forward. Luna grew faster than I expected. Within 6 months of the logistics fallout, we opened a second office, smaller, East Coast. Boston. Jenna led the launch. She handpicked a 5-person team. It wasn't flashy. Just smart. Sustainable. We signed 2 new clients in the first quarter. One of them? A distribution company that had previously worked with my father. When they switched over, I asked them gently why. The woman on the call said, "Because you don't fake the work. You just do it." That meant more to me than any award. We made the Inc. 500 list that fall. Top 50 in our category. The write-up called us an emerging brand intelligence powerhouse led by one of the most quietly fierce CEOs in tech. Quietly fierce. That stuck with me. Because yeah, I didn't scream. I didn't go scorched earth. I didn't sue him into the ground. But I rebuilt. I stood my ground. And I never looked back. The article even asked if I'd be interested in writing a book. Something about reclaiming space, women-led startups, intergenerational power dynamics. I said I'd think about it. Maybe I will. Someday. But for now, I'm writing something else. Not a book. Not a blog post. Just a note. To you. If you've made it this far, then maybe you needed this story more than you thought. Maybe you've been betrayed. Undermined. Told your success wasn't real unless it came through someone else's hands. Maybe someone took something from you, time, energy, or voice. Maybe they said, "You'll thank me one day." Let me be the one to say this. You don't owe them a single breath of gratitude. You don't have to forgive what never got repaired. You don't have to explain the boundaries you built. You don't have to shrink your story to protect their pride. You just have to keep building. Keep choosing yourself, even when it's quiet. Especially when it's quiet. Because the world doesn't reward loud drama the way it rewards lived resilience. And trust me, when the dust settles, there's a version of you waiting on the other side that doesn't just survive. She thrives. She builds the empire they said she wasn't ready for. She walks into rooms without apologizing for her existence. She leads, not because someone handed her power, but because she embodied it. That version of you? She's not the aftermath. She's the origin. The one they'll talk about years from now, wondering how she did it. So when they try to take what's yours, let them try. And when they fall, don't look back. You've got better things to do.